built? Do you know what the story is behind it and how John Storyk was really pissed off? Oh, yeah. Well, basically, yeah, what's up with the towels, man? What's up with that shit? John Storyk, young designer, just out of Princeton, was designed a nightclub, which was like one of those environmental kind of early experimentational things with platforms going out at different angles, all draped and stuff. And apparently, you'd have to don these robes and get into the. It was, I don't know, it was pretty strange sounding. It sounded like a bunch of hippies getting stoned, if you ask me. However, the picture got into Life magazine. Michael Jeffries, Jimmy's manager, and Jimmy saw this and said, "Oh man, this is cool. Okay, let's call this guy and get him to design us a nightclub." Jimmy had just bought the Generation, which was this nightclub in the basement on 8th Street. Incidentally, this nightclub used to be a nightclub. It goes back to the 20s. This building dates back. It used to be called the Village Barn. They used to have square dances there, if you can imagine that. But anyway, sorry about you guys who like square dancing. So it became the Generation Club. Jim used to go down there and jam. He would jam with Janice and with Buddy Guy and everybody, and he loved that place. So when it came up for sale, Michael and Jimmy bought it. Said, well, let's make a nightclub, and we'll put a little studio in the corner in the back there. And John designed this beautiful thing, a nice nightclub and stuff. And they said, well, what about the studio? I guess we'll call Kramer. And so Kramer comes down, walking down the stairs. Wow, check this place out. You want to do what? Make a studio? Yeah, get out. Forget the studio. Forget the nightclub. Let's make a studio. So we're going to make this the best studio in the world. And John looked at me like, huh, all my work that I've done. I said, yeah, man, you're crazy. This would be great as a studio. So that's what happened. We designed Electric Lady Studios. Took a year, 13 months, cost $1 million. We opened unofficially in like May. Jimmy came into the studio in May of 1970. And the only thing that Jimmy wanted, he said, I want round windows. He never came down during the construction. He said, I want round windows. So then they're still there. There's round windows on the control room doors. That was the only thing he wanted. And it blew people's minds because this was an environment for the artist. This studio was built for the artist. The walls were white, carpet, and there's a theater lighting system. You could wash the walls in different colors. Like Jimmy would come in and say, hey, man, I want like purple on the walls tonight. And he would make it like all purple walls and green on the other walls. And he said, yeah, man, that's cool. I love that. And he was so happy to be in that studio every night. Jimmy was there 7 o'clock, man. He was, boom, right on time. Never been on time to any session. I'd never seen him on time until we built the studio. He loved that studio. And he would come in, and like he'd come in early, and I'd be doing the previous session. I was working my tush off. And I'd finish the previous session, and there'd be people like standing in there, and he would say, oh, excuse me, ma'am, can I give you a chair and stuff? He was so polite and so sweet, and I wish he always was anyway. But he was so wrapped up in Electric Lady. This was his baby, that he had wanted his own place. He actually got pissed off about the fact that it was so busy. Sometimes he couldn't get in, So that became a point of discussion that we had to figure out. After Jimmy died, it was very tough to get back into the running of the studio again. It took me about 2 months before I could actually get my mind focused around the album that we were doing, which was Cry of Love, which incidentally is coming out again. One night, we're in the studio and we're remixing, and I had one guitar track that was just a DI. The amp track had disappeared. I don't know what happened. But anyway, thank God we had the DI. So I said, all right, take the cue, feed it out into his amp. We had one of his Marshall stacks. and all the lights were out in the studio. And the back door to the studio was open. And we had this guitar cranked, to get the tone, right? And I was re-recording it back onto the multi-track. And one of the assistant engineers had just joined the studio, came down the hallway and heard Jimmy's amp and totally freaked out, came running to the control. He thought he had heard a ghost. I swear, he was completely drained of every color. I mean, he was about to pass out. I said, "No, you idiot, it's just the DI going through the amp." But that's one of the, and Jimmy's vibe is still there in the studio. I mean, you walk in Electric Lady, you know you're in the house of Jimmy. It's great. It's still there. It still functions. It's still a great studio. It sounds wonderful. I still cut tracks there, and still to me one of the best studios in the world. River? Somebody say River? Oh yeah.
Underneath Electric Lady, isn't there a little water flow in?
Oh,